I want to shift to a couple of big topics. One being Damian Lillard, who about 2 weeks ago DM'd me. I sent out a tweet regarding him, and he DM'd me, and we went back and forth. And he was very cool about it. He was just sort of exploring his options. He loves Portland. He liked everything about Portland. But one of the things I kept saying is, hey man, you go 8 years at a place and they can't get you a second star. I never have a problem with anybody moving. I can do radio TV for 40 years. You got about 12 and then you start falling apart. And I look at this situation, and that CJ McCollum is a nice player, but he duplicates much of what Dame does. And there have been people, myself included, saying for 3 years, get wing scoring. You've got to get better on the wing. I mean, especially now that LeBron, Kawhi Leonard are west. And I don't feel a ton of pity for Portland. Like they've run this thing back like 3, 4, 5 years, Chris. And even though, so your takeaway on that. And second, I think you can get a load for Dame. I think a lot of guys want to play with him.
Well, look, there's a couple of things that I've been kind of feeling about this. One is, if Damian Lillard wants to leave, he owes Portland nothing. Like, he has given them everything he's had for the last 9 years. And, their failures do not fall on his shoulders. Their failures fall on a lack of talent around him, inconsistent play around him, a myriad other reasons. And look, every passing day, that loss to the Nuggets just feels worse and worse. Like, that's a Nuggets team that had the doors blown off them by Phoenix, and the Blazers lose in 6 games. So you can't really look at this Blazers team after that and say, all right, well, the return of Zach Collins is going to make all the difference with that group. It's just not. Now, like, I kind of take some issue. And again, I reiterate, like, Dame has the right to kind of push his way out, but how it's kind of being handled, it reminds me almost like a guy breaking up with a girl for the first time. Like, he doesn't know how to do it. Like, he's sort of doing it in this sort of ham-handed way where, he's speaking to Chris Haynes about, I want Jason Kidd, when he's never kind of done stuff like that, gone public about, personnel, coach, whatever, in the past. Haynes recently wrote, Haynes and obviously Dame have a great relationship. This is, to me anyway, it feels like it's all coming from him. Like, and it's like, taking issue with some of the stuff people are saying about him on social media. Well, I mean, who cares what people on Instagram and Twitter say about you? I mean, that if you can't let that represent the fan base at large. It just feels like Dame kind of sees what we see, Colin, that it's kind of over in Portland. And he's in his early 30s, and he could stay there. He's under contract through 2025, make a lot of money, cement himself as the greatest Blazer of all time, or he can move on and try to work with the Blazers to finding a trade partner. Now, I happen to think that's the best thing for both sides. Like, I understand the guy's incredibly popular and sells tickets and makes you relevant in a national way, but is it really worth like 3 more years of first or at best second round playoff exits? Like, we don't look at this Blazers team and say, even with a McCollum deal, that would put them above Utah or Phoenix or the Lakers or the Clippers. Teams are going to be there for the next 4 years, not to mention the teams behind them that are coming up, very quickly. Is it really worth all that? Like, Portland, I think you're right, could get a haul for Damian Lillard. I mean, you deal with the right team, and all it takes is one. Ask Sam Presti that. All it takes is one team to go crazy, and you get a haul and a half back for them. You can start to rebuild this franchise in the way you have to do it. I mean, I think both these sides kind of know what has to happen, but neither one seems to know how to do it at this point. They seem to be very confused as to how to make this split actually happen. And hopefully they can get on the same page in the next couple of months, and everybody can win with the results.
It's funny. A lot of people on the internet are making the Lakers look like a viable option. And, there's 2 things that jump out to me, and I've said this. I don't think they have anything to give unless they wanted to move off Anthony Davis. And because of Clutch Sports, they won't do that yet. Nobody wants, nothing against KCP, nothing against, Dennis Schroeder is very difficult. I've heard he's been difficult to coach. LeBron and Kuzma don't even, their body language is horrible. LeBron likes Caruso, but it feels like he could bail on anybody else. So I don't think they have a lot of pieces. But the one thing that is interesting when you look at Portland, Dame's a good guy. He could work everywhere. Most of the teams that have the assets are Western teams. And I'm sorry, I'm going to have a hard time, Damon, come back to burn me. Is there an Eastern team? I mean, obviously Portland ideally would like to move him out, of the time zone. Is there a team that works for you?
When it comes to Lillard, I mean, you could deal with Philadelphia and talk to Ben Simmons, because if you're making a deal like this, you can't do it for like a Bradley Beal centered package or something like that. You have to, if you're going to get another superstar back, it's got to be a superstar under contract for the foreseeable future. And Ben Simmons, despite his warts, is still a perennial all-star who is under contract as long as Dame is through 2025. That to me is the only Eastern Conference team that makes, well, I mean, you know what? As I think about it now with the Eastern Conference, like Boston could find a way to get there. Like, would you rather have Jaylen Brown or Ben Simmons, like as a centerpiece of a deal?
Well, Jaylen Brown is much more coachable.
Yeah,
he'll give you
higher ceiling, I think.
Well, he plays defense. I mean, Ben plays great defense, can't shoot. Jalen's really molded himself into a nice 22 point a game. What did he average this year? 24?
He was right around, he was in the 20s. And one thing living in Boston, I've covered him a lot. Like, he improves every single year. Like, this was his best year. And he just, the way this guy works, I can easily see him becoming 25, 26 points per game, 40% 3-point shooter. That's not nothing. Like that's a real asset who at 24 years old under contract, which is manageable, by the way, for I think at least the next 3 years, you could build around him. Boston, as we've noted many times in the past, protected its draft picks like they're their kids, so they've got all their assets there at their disposal. Some decent young players, not great, but decent young players you can throw into that mix. There's somebody I think that could make a run at Damian Lillard.